Hello and welcome to the Analog Toys Memorial Day weekend live stream. I know it's not Memorial Day, it's Memorial Day weekend. Well, it is Memorial Day for me because I'm in the future. But to all of the American viewers of this channel, I hope you're having a relaxing holiday weekend. And of course, I would like to take a moment to remember the sacrifices made by your servicemen and women. Thank you. Apologies for my tardiness. I had planned to set all this up last night because, this is a 4:30 a.m. start for a live stream for me. So I wanted everything set up last night so I could just kind of roll out of bed about 4 o'clock, have a cup of tea and jump online. But I worked tirelessly all day yesterday editing the first episode of Desert Rat Reacts, which if you're on Patreon, you would have already seen. If you're not on Patreon, then I can't help you. It's coming out later today. There won't be a 24-hour exclusive window on Patreon for that video. I'm going to be putting that out shortly after this stream, but it's been a good weekend for content on the Analog Toys Patreon. You got the Hydrofor video more than 24 hours early. The top tier patrons got a sneak peek at a video contribution of mine that's going towards 2 Cents Toys Iconicon video about our Toys R Us memories, because the day Iconicon starts, it'll be 4 years since Toys R Us closed in the United States, or worldwide pretty much. Okay, before we get too far, let's see who we've got in the chat here. We have a lot of people. Bile, Bjorn Jorgensen, Jim Largo, good to see ya. Brian Dillingham, Sergeant Slaughterhouse says good morning from Australia. Good morning to you, sir. Why is that coming up pink? Because Laser Pants uses... That's better. Because Laser Pants uses my StreamYard. I let him. Brian Dillingham, Gary's Action Man channel. Good to see you, Gary. Tony Robles, good to see you too. And you, George Aitken, Kieran Ball. Who else? I'm sure I saw Keith Knight. Yep, Keith Knight's here, of course. Keith, I got your message, mate, but I was running around. I will get back to you after the stream. Jeff72. Jeff Morris, good to see you. Matt Movie 611. Good afternoon, Matt. Matt, I am really, really looking forward to meeting you at Joe Fest and the Iconicon meetup, and looking forward to our War Stories collaboration for Rambo 3, a special Iconicon episode. Michael Schaefer, good to see you, sir. Carl Rudy, Gojatron. If I have missed anybody's name, I sincerely apologize. Daniel Dorian, King Eric the Greatest of All, That American Kid, Time Vault. I think I got everyone I could see in the John Stinsman. And John Stinsman says, hey, Tony, so happy to see an Action Man live stream again. You know what, John? So am I. I've missed what I call, this is the traditional Analog Toys live stream, where it's just me on camera with a bunch of cool toys. I'm going to get it back to doing more of these. I do miss these, particularly, the Action Man ones. And it was a very last minute decision to kind of do this stream. It was yesterday. We were supposed to have an Iconicon planning meeting on Saturday night, and we have a group chat. And Melinda had said to the group, hey, look, it's the holiday weekend. We're pretty much good to go. Like, I think this time last year we had to have a meeting because we were still running around trying to organize stuff. But thanks to some new members on the planning committee, particularly people like Conrad, who's been an incredible help with planning Iconicon 2022, we're in a pretty good space. And Melinda was like, hey, it's holiday weekend. There's nothing really important we need to discuss. Why don't everyone just skip the meeting and enjoy your weekend? And I was like, it's Memorial Day, because we don't have Memorial Day here in Australia. We have Remembrance Day, which I believe you guys recognize as well. And we have Anzac Day, which is the 25th of April. So, Daniel Dorian says, the Ski Patrol I find to be very underrated. Yes, particularly the 1960s Ski Patrol outfit. I don't have every Action Man American uniform on the table here. There'd be far too many, certainly from the 60s. You know, the first few years of Action Man was all American uniforms pretty much. So it's just a sampling of what's on the table here. But when it comes to the Ski Patrol, I very much like that outfit as well. So I've got a 1960s Action Man version of that outfit and a 1960s G.I. Joe version. And what I do, I display one in the skis and one in the snowshoes. Although now that I've moved in here, I think I've only got the Action Man one on display because space is very, very tight. Michael Schaefer says, always nice when the commanding officer gives you off for the holiday. Yes, very much so. Brian Dillingham, thank you very much for the Dillinghamism. It's very much appreciated. Now, I want to be very tactful in the way I say this. I am not asking anyone for any donations to Joe Fest, to fund my trip to Joe Fest. It's self-funded. It's pretty much, aside from spending money, I've already paid for the flights, accommodation, all of that kind of stuff is already organized. But it has cost me a lot of money. Times are tight, as you know, prices of gasoline and whatnot. So I'm not asking people, you know, I'm not begging you guys to send me a super chat, but what I would like to let you know is that every super chat from today's show will directly go to helping fund my trip to Joe Fest. It will ease the burden. But I'm by no means saying that you have to send a super chat. I'll try and read out a number of other comments and questions as well. There's a fly buzzing around in here. It's also very stormy. We've been in somewhat of a storm in Port Hedland the last 2 days. It's been raining non-stop. I can't get any of the laundry dry. So, Bobby L. Collins, 100%, mate. I will probably need some bail dollars, but that might put a dent in Valaverse profits, perhaps. Or maybe, actually, Bobby will probably just leave me there. During the house move, I also found an old cup that's been missing for a very, very long time. Got my SAS winged badge there, and Who Dares Wins on the back. I'm really pleased to have rediscovered this cup. I like this cup. Jim Largo, thank you very much. That's a very generous super chat. He says, Desert Rat overreacts is hilarious. Loved it. Yeah, for those of you who saw the trailer the other day, some people thought it was like a belated April Fool's joke. Like, I don't know why someone would put a April Fool's joke up at the end of May, but that was kind of for a little bit of fun, but also it genuinely is a trailer for a new show. And yeah, if you're on Patreon, you've already seen the first episode of Desert Rat Reacts, where Desert Rat and his cat F-Bomb react to the first 2 episodes of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. For those of you who aren't on my Patreon, you'll probably get to see that shortly after this stream. I'm going to make that video public. So, yes, very much so, Bile. At least the Australian ground is regenerate. Yeah, I mean, I live in a very kind of hot, arid, desert, remote, bumfuck nowhere part of the country. And it's actually very unusual to get rain like this and at this time of year. We had a spell about, I want to say, a week or 2 ago, which was very unusual. And then it's pretty much been raining non-stop now for 48 hours, and it's raining a lot. The road between here and Karratha, which is the next major town, is flooded. You can't get there. So basically, unless you are flying in and out of Port Hedland, we're kind of trapped here. But it is what it is. Kieran Ball says, Desert Rat's okay, but F-Bomb the cat is the star. Yes. You will learn more about F-Bomb's character as we go along. He's very abrasive. He's also somewhat psychotic. He has an obsession with murdering people. Michael Schaefer says, how goes the training, Tony? It's going very well, Michael Schaefer, because when I first got into it, I went out and I bought a pair of desert boots. Admittedly, I didn't spend a lot of money. I kind of bought it's not the kind of, I didn't spend the kind of money I would if they were boots I was going to wear, for a 6-month tour in Iraq. But they did the job. They did the job for a while. I've done that many miles in those boots that literally the soles of those boots are falling apart. So I've bought a nice, brand new, relatively expensive pair of 511 tactical desert boots, which turned up the other day. They're really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed my first trip around the marshes in them yesterday. I did about 7 miles yesterday with full pack, and it's going well. I feel good. I feel strong. I don't know that my body looks that much different, but when you're 40, I'll be turning 45 during Iconicon. And I'll actually be having my birthday at Retro Blasting headquarters, which is going to make it doubly special. So, that American kid says, at Joe Lanta this year, a guy named Ace had a mint package of the Geojoe Green Beret outfit and accessory pack. So the G.I. Joe Green Beret outfit, when it was sold with G.I. Joe, it was sold as a large window box figure, much like this one here. It didn't have the Silver Star medal. That's what makes the Action Man one very unique and very desirable, is that Silver Star medal on there. But you could also get another carded uniform, which I don't think they called it the Green Beret. They called it Special Forces, which was the beret, the scarf, the tunic and trousers, and the bazooka and a few shells. So he didn't have the belt and the M16 and all that stuff. That is very, very hard to get on the card. Jim Largo said, is F-Bomb the cat based on any of your real life feline companions? No, F-Bomb the cat is based on F-Bomb the wife, who you may or may not know has quite the violent streak when she's had a couple of drinks. I was trying to think of a name for the cat. I needed someone for Desert Rat to talk. And speaking of Desert Rat, I brought the star of the show with me. There's Desert Rat with a lightsaber and a whiskey, his 3 POA shirt and a bit of bling. You'll also figure out in this first episode that Desert Rat is not physically disabled. That's not why he's in a wheelchair. He just finds it comfortable and he's a bit lazy. I was trying to work out the whole idea for Desert Rat Reacts came from I was already sort of preempting that when I return from the States, one of the first videos I'll be doing is my review of Valaverse Series 2B. And like I did with Series 1 and Series 2A, I put a spoof commercial in there. And the spoof commercial in the review of Valaverse Action Force Series 1 mentioned a mail-away figure called PTSD, which was Desert Rat. I thought for this, it would be really interesting to kind of revisit that and see, this mail-away action figure, codenamed PTSD, in some kind of rundown apartment. That's where the whole idea came from. And then I built the set. And once I built the set, I was like, this is like a set for a sitcom. The only problem is, it's very difficult. I will like to have guests sometimes. Desert Rat will have friends over for drinks. I'm thoroughly looking forward to having Sal's laconic stormtrooper come visit at one time. Excuse me. I was like, as a YouTube content creator, as much as I love to collaborate with fellow content creators and YouTube channels, it can be quite, it's challenging at times, when you've got an idea and you want to make a video and get it out there. you have to, excuse me, just realized I need to unpin that message that says, bear with me, I'll be late, because we're not late now, we're here. Yeah, you get an idea for a video and you want to edit it together, put it all together, put the video out. And it's just a longer production process. If you're collaborating with someone, you need to share script ideas, you need to wait for them to record. So I do want to do several episodes like that. I'd love to have an episode where Desert Rat gets drunk with Skeletor and Michael French does the voice for me and things like that. But I thought, in lieu of a guest, Desert Rat needs somebody to talk to. And I was just going through my 6-inch scale action figure accessories, and I was like, there's the cat that came with the custom F-bomb figure. There was 2 cats, and I'm like, he could talk to a cat, because when the cat responds, I just need some sound effects and I can communicate through subtitles. It was a concept that I got where, okay, I can now make these reaction video episodes without and I can do them all on my own. I do really look forward to collaborating with some people, as I said. But when something happens in pop culture and Desert Rat wants to react, then we can just roll camera and react. So, the Time Vault, thank you very much for the very generous super chat. It says, been a fan for a few years, always like hearing your military references, history from the US. Thanks for your service and have a good Iconicon trip. Thank you very much, Time Vault. That is very kind of you. Whoa, Wolfie, man, thank you very much. It says, for gas money, which now needs to be paid for with private islands. The missus and I will see you at the Iconicon meetup and possibly Sunday of Joe Fest. Safe travel. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, Wolfie, and I sincerely appreciate that. That will help. I don't know if it's going to go for gas money though, because I'm not going to help Bobby with gas money. He can pay that with his Valaverse dollars. But no, thank you very much. Thank you, Toy Vault, Jim Largo, Brian Dillingham. The super chats are much appreciated. Bobby O'Collins, Desert Rat was wearing Destro's bling. Yes, he was wearing Destro's bling. He also looks good in Sergeant Slaughter shades, particularly Sergeant Slaughter version 2, the gold shades. That Pimp Daddy Destro figure, I can't wait to do an episode where you see Desert Rat wearing that animal fur cape. That may be in the next episode, actually. Gary's Action Man channel says, got 2 Action Man Green Berets, first and second issues complete with silver stars. What's the difference between the first and second issues, Gary? I didn't know there was a first and second issue of that particular outfit. Been collecting and obsessing over Action Man for most of my life, and I'm still learning. So if you can elaborate, I'd very much like to hear it. If you look closely, there's a difference between US paratrooper and US machine gun webbing. Yes. James Salzberg, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, the US paratrooper was one of my prize finds along with the Royal Hussar and 7th Cavalry of my vintage Action Man collection. Hope you have a great trip. Thank you very much, James. All right, let's get into some of the toys we've got on the table here. Now, for anyone who understands the history of Action Man / G.I. Joe, the first few years of Action Man was literally G.I. Joe brought to the United States. You had the Action Soldier, Action Sailor, Action Pilot, and Action Marine. Palitoy opted to drop the Marine line and just go with the Soldier, Sailor, and Pilot for Action Man. and they literally the product was tooled by Palitoy's own factories, but they borrowed all the tooling from Hasbro. So you'll find that although it looks the same, there are differences between the types of materials used. You know, the types of plastic used for weapons and helmets and things like that. But yeah, I thought I would put on the table a representation of the action soldier, the action pilot, and the action sailor. There were an extensive range of outfits during those first few years of Action Man that were all American. In fact, the first time we actually deviated away from American is when we got the Soldiers of the Century range, which featured the British Commando, the Australian Jungle Fighter, the French Resistance Fighter, the Russian Infantry, the German Stormtrooper, and the American guy, the Green Beret, which in America was not sold as part of that collection. He was just he was like a deluxe version of the action soldier. The Americans actually had the Japanese Imperial Soldier that we never got in the UK. But yeah, that was in 1967, I believe, the second year of Action Man's production run. We got that wave of international Action Man figures based on World War II uniforms from different countries from around the world. And the American representation within that line was the Green Beret that I have here. I do have his radio. It's just I didn't want to bring too many little accessories out from the collection room. And I was setting this up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Bile says, do you have any Action Man with the Canadian marking on the waist? I'm not sure what you mean. Are you talking about on the actual on the figure stamped on? It's more on his butt than on his waist. If that's what you're asking, yes, I do. Keith Knight says, was the Green Beret uniform of Vietnam era, bearing in mind the M16 rifle? Yes, 100%, because I'm not actually that sure that the Green Berets as we know them, I don't even think they existed in World War II. This is literally based on the Vietnam era. So within the Action Man line, that was the only figure out of that set of 6 that wasn't technically World War II based. That was because, as I said, in the Hasbro Geojoe line, they had the Japanese Imperial Soldier instead. And Palitoy, some people say that Palitoy weren't keen on bringing a Japanese soldier into the line, but no one could kind of say for certain. It could possibly be just the fact that they didn't want to have to use tooling for an individual head because that Japanese soldier has a unique face sculpt, so he looks Japanese. It's quite possible that's what Palitoy also did, is that, you know, because they did bring in the German Stormtrooper. I don't know how you can say the German Stormtrooper's okay, but the Japanese Imperial Soldier isn't. So perhaps it was just, they didn't want to. Also, Action Man was selling, Palitoy was selling the Action Man outfits as carded outfits without a figure, whereas in the G.I. Joe line, those were like deluxe figures in a big window box, you know, figure and outfit. So perhaps it's because of the way Action Man was selling them. They were like, we can't sell a Japanese uniform. You know, you can sell American, Russian, Australian, and just put it on a basic Action Man, and, you know, the face is the face. But you can't you can't put a Japanese uniform onto a Caucasian-looking face. It doesn't make sense. So, Brian Dillingham, thank you for the super chat. Another Dillinghamism. Which US outfit is your favorite? Well, it's not. It's part of the vintage G.I. Joe line. We didn't get it in the Action Man line, but I do particularly like the Marine Jungle Fighter from the Action Marine line with G.I. Joe. I particularly like the Shore Patrol, which is another G.I. Joe outfit. we didn't get shore patrol in the UK. It's more of a dress-looking naval uniform with a white helmet with SP for shore patrol on it, and the ski patrol I particularly like as well. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them I like. Moonlight 47 says, out of curiosity, are there things to look out for when collecting those now, particularly when it comes to the age of the fabric plastic? Yes, I don't even know where to begin to answer that question. You'll find that every piece of elastic, whether it be a helmet strap or a rifle strap or whatever, is going to be really badly deteriorated, dry rotted, and probably lost. You can pick up, I think it's 3mm or 4mm elastic braid, and replace a lot of the straps and helmets if you're good with a sewing needle. For anyone who thinks that it means the figures are no longer original, you're one of those idiots who would like to have, your entire Geojoe collection to include, I'm talking about a real American hero here. You're the same kind of person who wants to have this vintage collection filled of figures with completely dry rotted O-rings, and you don't want to replace them. It's just ridiculous. A vintage car is still a vintage car, even when you replace the tires. So yeah, that's one thing to look out for. You really need to know the difference between what is vintage and what is 40th anniversary reproduction, because they made a lot of stuff. Although I don't find, I've had the odd experience of being ripped off by some unscrupulous sellers, but it's very, very few and far between. It's not to the point where it's ever put me off collecting Action Man. And I think you'll find that most reputable Action Man sellers will be completely upfront about what is vintage and what is 40th anniversary. And let's be honest, the 40th anniversary Action Man stuff started coming out in 2006, and it actually ran for about 4 or 5 years. It was so successful, they kept bringing out more and more stuff. They really did produce an extensive range of figures and outfits. And while I think the figures are terrible, don't buy the figures, a lot of the outfits and accessories are really, really good. And even though that's only, 15, 16 years ago, the 40th anniversary, that stuff has now become highly, highly collectible in and of itself. So I wouldn't be too upset if you're out there collecting and you get 40th anniversary instead of vintage. Just, I'm hoping, you have an honest seller, which most of them I find are in the Action Man community. Yeah, that you know what you're getting, and hopefully you get it a little bit cheaper. But, don't go for 40th anniversary just because you think I'm alluding that it might be a cheap option, because it's not. I sent Bobby a carded version of the Long Range Desert Group outfit from the 40th anniversary line after I had secured an original vintage one, which I didn't think I was ever going to acquire, but then one just popped up right before Christmas, so I spent the wife's Christmas present money on it. No, not really. Grace still got a present. But when I got the original one, I sent the 40th anniversary one to Bobby. That 40th anniversary one was, when it came out in the 2000s, that carded outfit and the box figure was £30 for the set. That's how they used to sell them, a box figure and the carded outfit. That was £30. I paid like $225 for that 40th anniversary reproduction. The original carded outfit, vintage carded outfit, was closer to $1,000. So, okay. King Eric, the greatest of all, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, sorry, wish I could give more for your trip. Also, thank you for your service. King Eric, don't apologize, man. You don't, no one has to send anything. I'm not sort of trying to get people to fund the trip. But I wanted people to know that, well, pretty much from here until when I get a YouTube payment, I get a YouTube payment the day I arrive. I get paid monthly by Google for ad revenue and super chats and things. on the 21st of the month, and that is the day that I arrive in the States. So I just wanted people to know that whatever support they show on today's live stream and whatever else I do between now and an Iconicon, those funds will directly go towards just helping me out a little on the trip, you know. But it's not like I won't be going without your help. It's already paid for. Gary's Action Man channel says, did I get the Long Range Desert Group outfit from Ian Moore? Well, I'm not sure who Ian Moore is. The name is very, very familiar. Which does he run a store or something? I got it from the Eagle Eyes Action Station. It popped up on the Eagle Eyes Action Station, which, for those of you who aren't aware, is a website for selling vintage Action Man product. A very, very good website. Really devoted to actually, you know, they get a lot of really cool stuff in. And yes, I think I follow him on Facebook, and I think I get email updates from him. And yeah, I just saw it popped up in my feed it was around November of last year. He got a bunch of new old shop stock outfits, one of which was the Long Range Desert Group. And I ummed and ahed for about 3 days over the price. And then I thought, they don't turn up very often. And the more I procrastinate, the more likely it is that someone else is going to buy it. So I bit the bullet. And I got it. And that's, you know, part of my Desert Rat collection. So the Canuck, thank you very much. She says, don't tell us not to send you money. How dare you? We will throw money at you regardless of what you say or want. So have $5 just because. Well, you know, I do believe on the Saturday night at Joe Fest, in the hotel lobby, you will be able to stick crumpled up dollar bills in my thong. I'll be dancing on the bar, I imagine. And then getting bailed out by Bobby the next morning. Nick Cage, thank you very much. So, thank you for your service, Tony. Let's have a real moment right now. I became very aware of that expression, you know, thank you for your service, when I was serving in Iraq as a Department of Defense contractor, because I was working for the American Department of Defense. I was a DoD contractor. So I was constantly surrounded by American service personnel. I was living on American bases, you know, for 4 years. And that's when I started to hear that expression. And I remember discussing with a lot of people about how it made for me the sacrifice of the Vietnam veteran so much more tragic, painful, but important, because the American Vietnam veteran did not, and the Australian Vietnam veteran as well, because they're, you know, the reaction from the public here was much the same as the States, where a lot of soldiers came home, you know, expecting to come home to, you know, parades and being treated like war heroes, to actually, you know, get treated very, very badly, to the point where a lot of them, you know, the day after they got back, you know, threw away their uniforms or burned their uniforms, and never told people for a long, long time that they were ever in the Vietnam War because of the way they reacted. So, and I feel as though I don't like to give Hollywood credit very often, but, you know, filmmakers like Oliver Stone, people who've written books like what's the character that Tom Cruise plays in Born on the 4th of July? Ron Kovac. Books like that and media like that really showed the public the experience of the Vietnam veteran, and how that and how their experience was very it's whatever people think of the politics of any war, it's not the soldiers' fault. It's the people in government that you should be angry at. So, my point is that when I was living on these American bases, from sort of 2007 through to 2011, and I would hear a lot of people use the thank you for your service, and then I would start seeing videos on YouTube of people thanking soldiers and just walking up to them in the street if they're in a uniform and wanting to shake their hand and thank them for their service. I was like, man, we've come such a long way since the Vietnam conflict, and as much I wish that those men weren't treated that way, but I really hope that some of them at least feel some sense of justice with the fact that we've finally learnt our lesson, and that today's culture has really changed its way. When people say to me, thanks for your service, I normally don't mention it, you're welcome. I really don't know how to respond, because I don't feel like any one of you needs to thank me for my service. I'm proud of my service. And I would have served whether any of you knew or not. I mean, for those of you who've been following the channel from the start, I think this channel was going for over 2 years before I ever even actually started to open up that I'd even been in the military, let alone what it was I did in the military. So, yeah, long story short, you don't have to thank me for my service, but I want to thank you for thanking me. And if I could ask you, any one of you, if you do like to thank someone for their service, next time you're if you're in the States, and the next time you walk into a cafe or something like that, and you see the old guy sitting there and he's got Vietnam veteran on his hat, pick up the guy's bill or shake his hand and thank him for his service, because I'm getting emotional now, man. I've got a thing for Vietnam veterans. I spent some time at Vung Tau in Vietnam, where I met a lot of Australian veterans who now live there because they don't feel like when they returned, Australia wasn't the home that they'd left, and things changed. So, okay, let's move on. The Canuck says, I must say that photo of Bobby on Desert Rat wall needs to come down. No. That needs to stay up there. There's a reason that there is a photo of Bobby on the wall, and it's not because he created. Obviously, in reality, he's the creator of not only Desert Rat, but the new Action Force toy line. But in the story, there's going to be a reason why Bobby's picture is up on the wall, and I might start unraveling that subplot a little bit in the next episode. What I need first is just something to react to. And just to establish the rules of Desert Rat Reacts as well. I'm just reacting to pop culture stuff. All right. I know the intro video says, it says reactions to movies, YouTube videos, and pop culture nonsense. So, for example, if I had have started that, excuse me, if I had have started the Desert Rat React sub-series 6 months ago, I would have done an episode about the Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. There would have been an episode about that, for example. I'm thoroughly looking forward to one day Desert Rat sitting down and, watching Schwarzenegger's Commando and reacting to that. Doesn't even have to be modern pop culture, but certainly as and when things I'm not going to do a reaction to, I think, every single episode of actually, I know I'm not going to do a reaction to every single episode of Obi-Wan. It was just, as I was getting ready, I nearly did the first episode as a reaction to the Thor Love and Thunder trailer. But I didn't feel like that there was enough substantial content there. And then I was like, oh, damn, Obi-Wan comes out on Friday. Just wait till Friday and react to that. So I made the video on the weekend. Oh, Jim Largo, thank you for another super chat. It says, "Yep, my dad was a Navy corpsman." I nearly said corpsman then. God, I know how to pronounce it. My dad was a Navy corpsman serving with the Marines in Vietnam. He's uncomfortable with that thank you phrase, but tries to be gracious. I think a lot of us are uncomfortable with that phrase because I can't speak for all the veterans out there, but I think a lot of them might relate to what I'm saying is that doesn't matter what any of us did or where we served, whatever job we had, whether you were a radio operator at base camp or whether you were a Navy SEAL, none of us was special. We just did a job. We always joked in the special forces that there's actually nothing special about it. We just do the basics really, really well. It's a very common expression that you hear in the special forces. Is that we're not special. We're just people who are extremely professional and do our job to the best of our ability. So, George Aitken says his granddad was a desert rat, served all the way through the war from France to Italy. Man, that's almost somewhat serendipitous in a way, if that's the right word. What does serendipitous mean? I'm just throwing out fancy words to try and sound intelligent. So, as much as I love the Action Force toy line, and I was always going to get into collecting it again, just didn't understand the jumping off point. The floodgates opened when I received that first very generous gift box from George. And I was like, I'm all in. At the time, I only had the Robo Skull and a few figures. And I was all in. George sent me, an amazing donation of figures and vehicles on more than one occasion. And I went out to eBay and I started buying everything else. So bear with me here. George's granddad was a desert rat in World War II. George is an Action Force fan who sent some very generous donations to this channel and really kickstarted a series of Action Force history videos. A series of videos that's one of my most proudest moments on the Analog Toys channel is doing the videos on the 4 different teams and the 1982 wave and all that kind of thing. Through those videos, was exposed. Bobby Valor was exposed to my channel. Me and Bobby then became friends. Bobby then brings me into the line and he makes me Desert Rat. And it's just this whole beautiful come full circle kind of moment. I cannot understate just how important my friend George has been to this channel. Sincerely, George, your kindness and generosity has it's kept the passion alive within me as a creator. It's enabled me to make some fantastic content that other people are just not making on YouTube. So with it being Memorial Day weekend, I know you didn't serve in the military, George, but you serve in the NHS, which what Americans don't know is like the National Health Service. George was one of the heroes of the pandemic, still going to work when everyone else was in lockdown. Thank you, George. Thank you very much. I was thinking about it last night, actually. There are certain people along the way of this tumultuous journey on YouTube who have really helped in ways that I just don't think they truly understand how important it's been. Yeah. And Michael Schaefer's another one. See, this is how important this guy is. That's the correct use of serendipitous. Don't sell yourself short. Excellent. Thank you for reaffirming that. I wasn't. It is early in the morning here. Come on, guys. Come on. Where are we? Scuba Pete says, my one grandpa was a tanker in the Korean War, and my other was a combat engineer in the Philippines and up into Japan. Wow, that's combat engineers and tankers. That's some tough guys, man. Some tough guys there. I was a combat engineer. That was my first job in the military when I joined the Australian Army. I was a combat engineer. My grandparents on my mother's side, my grandfather was a Navy semaphore signalman, like a bit like this guy here. Obviously, the British version, but with the signal flags, and they would do the YMCA or whatever it is to talk to other vessels. And growing up as a kid, like my granddad died a long time ago. My grandmother was a widow for a long time. She only passed away a couple of years ago. My granddad passed away in 1991. He was only in his early 60s. Lovely, lovely man. Never talked about his wartime service. I knew he was in the Navy. But he was in the Navy. I just assumed, he did a tour on a ship and didn't see a lot of action. And it wasn't until the 60th anniversary of D-Day. I was living in the UK and I went and visited my grandmother, and it came up in conversation because there was a lot of stuff on the TV and the media at the time about the 60th anniversary of D-Day. And I started talking to my grandmother, and she ended up digging out his old service records. Excuse me. There's something stuck in my throat there. She started digging up his old service records, his demobilization papers. She found old photographs, and through a lot of research, I learned that my grandfather was actually the crew of landing craft that dropped troops onto Sword Beach on D-Day. My granddad was a veteran of the D-Day landings at Sword Beach. On my dad's side, my grandfather was he was in the Royal Army Medical Corps. He was a medic. He was awarded the Burma Star for service in Burma. And he actually stayed in the army for a number of years after the Second World War. I believe he ended up serving some time in Egypt, and he got out in the 1950s. So, yeah. And in the First World War, my granddad on my mum's side, I can't remember what corps he was in. I've got this beautiful photo of my great grandfather on my mother's side. He was my family on my mother's side are very horsey people. Still to this day, like they have horse stables, and not they're not horse racing. They're just people who like to own horses and take care of horses and have that bit of that's what they're into. That's what they do instead of collect toys and make YouTube videos. But that's kind of been in the family for a long time. In the First World War, my great grandfather was already quite a what's the word I'm looking for? A quite experienced horse rider, and in the First World War, he ended up being the driver of. I think he was in like a logistics and transport corps, but he literally drove a horse and carriage, resupplying ammunition to the front lines. So, Michael Schaefer says paternal grandfather was first wave Iwo Jima Marine. Father was in the Navy. Uncle was in the Air Force, and brother was in the Army. Whoa. This stream is, as much as it's nice to have this Action Man stuff on the table, this stream has turned into us telling stories about our grandfathers. And if you'll permit me, I just want to carry on with that because I'm finding this very fascinating. Keith Knight here says, my dad was in the Royal Artillery in his younger days. My granddad was with the 8th Army in Africa in 1942, driving supply trucks and ambulances. And our older generation certainly got around, didn't they? Gary's Action Man channel says, my mum, grandfathers both served in World War One. Or his mother's grandfathers both served in World War One, both seriously injured. One gassed with permanent damage to his lungs, and the other had his shoulder blown off. Had more than 100 operations to remove shrapnel. Man, some of the things that are the generation before us that they went through. Amazing. I did see a comment up here earlier. Let me just see if I can find it again. From President Zelensky. Wouldn't it be cool if that really was President Zelensky? But I think he's a little bit too busy to be tuning into my live streams. Says, is Action Force the British Geojoe? Yes and no. If you want to know what Action Force is, go to the channel page and watch our Action Force videos. There is probably 8 videos that I really recommend. So it is Action Force 1982. Watch that video. Then you've got the 5 videos about the teams, the enemy team, the Space Force, the Q Force, the Z Force, and the SAS. And then you've got the Action Force International Heroes, completing the collection video I did, and the Robo Skull video, a video dedicated to peeling back the curtain and showing what the design process was like for Bob Breakin at Palatoy coming up with a toy like the Robo Skull. Oh. Moonlight 47 says, as someone from a younger generation, I find it fascinating too, but at the same time, part of me feels unworthy of these stories. Perhaps you're just looking at it the wrong way. I don't think. I mean, even my generation of veterans and the Vietnam generation and the World War II and the Korean generation and all of that. It's not about whether you're worthy of the stories or not. It would be a disservice to the service of these veterans to not remember the history, because by studying and understanding and learning from history is how that we prevent things like these conflicts from happening again. So I think perhaps you're looking at it the wrong way. You're certainly not unworthy. As a matter of fact, the sacrifice was made so that you could learn from these stories. And speaking as a veteran myself, I would much rather you learnt these stories and took something away from it. I would rather you did that than thanked a veteran for their service. I think that's more valuable than thanking someone for their service. So, Jeff72 said he served 22 years in the military, and 3 of my cousins have served too. One is a law enforcement officer in the US. Wow, 22 years. Where are you still serving, Jeff72? When's retirement for you? Nick says his son found an incomplete Action Force ATC at a charity shop today for £2. Now comes the hint for parts. 7 years old and he knows a bike. Man, wow. Just the basic shell, for £2 is worth every penny. Definitely check out the Kraken Wakes on Instagram. They do a lot of reproduction parts like the antenna and parts for the missile rack. I'm not exactly sure the extent of what it is that they offer reproduction wise, but check them out. You may be able to start piecing that ATC together with some repro parts and do it a little bit cheaper. Yes, Michael Schaefer. Absolutely 100% agree with you. This should never be hidden and never forgotten. 100%. Samuel Russell says, I've been thinking about joining the army after high school. I've also been thinking about becoming a fireman. Follow your heart, man. Follow your heart. The one piece of advice that I would give someone who is considering joining the military, it's not something you want to do on a whim. Or it's also not something I think you want to do because you don't have a better idea. I would certainly say if you're 100%, if you're passionate about wanting to join the military, about wanting to serve, then 100% go and do it. But if it's because you don't think you can find a better job or something like that, then perhaps you don't do it. I would like to take a moment to see if everyone is appreciating the new background in the studio. Put up some LED lights the other day. I'm going to go and get some more. I like these LED lights. I'm going to get some more of them. But yeah, what do you all think? Is it very noticeable? I like it. It's all color changing, and I'm really enjoying this whole studio setup. It's, as I mentioned in some Patreon messages, this house is a bit smaller. The collection room's smaller. The studio room is smaller. But after years of making videos and understanding what a lot of the challenges are, I'm forever getting, new bits of equipment, whether it would be a simple stand to display something on for a certain type of shot, or, rotating tables and different lights and stand, all sorts of things. I put a lot of thought into the way I was going to set up the studio before I moved in here. And now that it's here, and also in the produced videos, have you noticed the nice new color of the background? That is simply a bed sheet that is has been draped over a long pole that I've hung on the wall, which I can take off the wall and change the backdrop if needed. But Grace picked out the color for me, and I love the way it looks. And for me, I think in 10 years, 20 years time, I might look back at my time running Analog Toys. Hopefully I'm still running Analog Toys in 10, 20 years time. I don't know how many people will be checking in to listen to a 65-year-old talk about toys, but you never know. I like the fact that the produced videos, they changed the color of the backdrop when we came here, because when I go back through, I will instantly know, watching older videos in the future, I'll be like, that's that backdrop. That's when I moved into, this is pretty much the third studio I've had, technically. Maybe possibly even it's the fourth house I've lived in since I've run it, but the first house I lived in never really had a dedicated studio. That was something I established. In fact, no, I didn't have a proper studio in the second one. So this is actually, this is only the second official studio. Everything else was kind of, and when I say that, it's a dedicated room with lights, cameras, sound dampening, stuff like that. Prior to the last house, everything was just kind of makeshift and however I could do it. So, Jeremy Jernigan, good to see you, man. I don't remember saying hello to you at the start. I don't know if you came in late, but good to see you here. Yes, they do display really well together. On the table here, so from this point this way, these are 1960s action men. These three guys here are late 70s, early 80s. This is the carded outfit for the US machine gunner. Got his Browning 30 caliber machine gun on the tripod there. Yeah, terrific figures. Moonlight 47 says the glowing tree is a nice touch. Thank you. I just put it there. I bought that tree a while ago, I think, for a Christmas special video that I did, or perhaps for a live stream about Christmas. And it's, I always keep it in the studio because I know every year I'm going to, Christmas themed stuff. And that's just where I ended up putting it. I just found a spot for it when I was putting everything in. So today, because normally when I do these streams, the camera is a little bit closer because it's just me on the camera. If I'm doing war stories or whatever it is. But because I pulled the camera further back to show kind of the full collection and show what's on the table, and that was in the corner. I was like, oh, I'll go and turn that on as well. And I've also got, for Halloween, we've got the glowing pumpkin as well. We'll get that out for Halloween. Thank you, Keith. He says the new setup looks the nuts, mate. Really cool. Much appreciated. The Dragon Reborn says the colors are lovely in the background, but they do clash with the color of your eyes. Only I remember when Bobby was creating was doing the paint master for Desert Rat, and he messaged me and he's like, "Hey man, what color are your eyes?" I was like, "You don't know? Like you haven't spent as long staring into my eyes as I have spent staring into yours." Like I know Bobby's got brown eyes. But yeah, I have in real life, I have very, very blue eyes. Scuba Pete says Gracie called. She wants a disco ball now too. So Grace has been out and about on the week. She's caught up with an old friend that she hasn't seen in years and years and years. A really close old friend of hers in Thailand. So she spent kind of the first week there with her family. She's gone away for the weekend with her friend. They've been out the last 2 nights in a row. And when I got up at like 3:30, and Thailand is 1 hour behind. But when I got up at 3:30 and I checked the phone, Grace had been active like 1 hour ago. And I was like, oh, she kept going till about 2:00 in the morning. She'll feel a little bit worse for wear today, I think. I believe she's going out to get a tattoo today. Yeah. Don't even know what she's getting. Daniel Dorian says, at Analog Toys, just dawned on me now. It's a year since that Winston figure I sent you arrived. Hope it still gives you joy. It does. It does. Geek Dragon, thank you very much for the kind super chat. He said, my girlfriend on my mum's side served in the Philippines, and he would tell us about a pet monkey his unit had. I have a World War II Russian rifle he brought back. Oh, that's very cool. A pet monkey, eh? Yeah, we some of the different bases I was on in Iraq, we would kind of adopt, stray dogs as pets. There was one in particular I remember, a 3-legged dog. Don't know how he lost his third leg, but he did. Perhaps he was just born with 3 legs. I don't know. But yeah, it was like the little unit mascot kind of thing. Gojatron says, please keep making videos when you're 65. I need something to watch while the nurse changes my diaper. Gojatron, I have over the years, I actually think I've got more of a passion for telling stories through the medium of video than I do actually about collecting toys. It made sense, when I was making a YouTube channel. Well, let's make it about toys because that's something you can show on camera and you can talk about. But as you've seen certainly in the last year, I've started to branch out into different types of content. What really comes to mind is the Desert Rat short film was something very, very different that I did, and I'm very proud of the way that short film turned out. Um, I'm halfway through editing a documentary called The Real Desert Rat, which is basically just a sit down, very raw interview. A friend that I served with in the SAS interviews me, and I'm currently cutting that together and showing a lot of photos, from childhood right up until my adult life. That's going to be like 30-40 minutes documentary, but a real look at the real desert rat. And I'm very, very happy with the way that is starting to come together, that particular video as well. So I'm sure the whole Analog Toys format will change, when I'm 65 and, if I'm, if I'm starting to grow hair out of my ears and I get ridiculously overweight and people don't want to see me on camera, maybe you'll just listen to my voice instead of seeing me on camera. But rest assured, I won't stop making videos. I love it. It's my passion. I'll keep making videos. Daniel Dorian, thank you very much for the super chat. I read that one. And Nick, thank you for the super chat. It says, I start filming my first YouTube video this week. Wow, what a lot I've had to learn, but all you guys inspire me with your channels. First of all, I wish you all the success in the world with your YouTube channel, with your first video. My advice is, different pieces of equipment and all of that can really help out and makes video production easier as you go along. But with the technology inside the modern phone, if you have, I've recently got like a top of the range iPhone because my other phone died. Literally, the phone was cracked and it wouldn't hold charge anymore. And Grace was overseas, and I just went in the shop. I had to get a phone that day, and they didn't have much in stock beyond the top of the range model. So I went and I have got a nice new metallic blue. This is an iPhone 13 Pro Max 256 gig. That's not me showing off. I didn't actually want to spend that much money, but when you go into the shop, and that's kind of all that they have in stock. I'm saying there are other shops where I can buy them, but I'll go to my service provider where I can get this on a 2-year plan, and I basically pay the phone off over 2 years. I didn't want to have to fork out $1,500 just a month before going to Joe Fest. That was a little bit too much money. So what I'm kind of getting at here is the technology inside a phone like that these days. You can shoot really good quality video, record really good quality audio. You can edit on the phone with a program like iMovie, which you do have to pay for, but it's not massively expensive. I think you have to pay for it. I'm not sure, but it's not massively expensive. You can film, edit your whole video on your phone and upload it to YouTube. For anyone who's thinking about, if you feel like you want to do a YouTube channel, just go out and start doing it like that. You don't need to go out and buy expensive cameras and lights and microphones and all of this stuff. Just have a go, and then you go on a journey over time, and you will over time. When I started this channel, I had one camera. I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 video cameras plus my phone, multiple different types of microphones and lights and all sorts of stuff. You don't need to rush out and get it all straight away. Banzig, I can't pronounce that. 96. Main differences between Action Man and G.I. Joe. That's a very broad question that cannot be answered easily. I would pretty much say that the main difference is Action Man is British, Geojoe is American, and it is reflected certainly throughout the 1970s in the types of product that they were putting out. You know, most of the military uniforms that we got during the 1960s, yeah, we got a lot of German World War II stuff, but the vast majority of it was British uniforms. That's the main difference. But if you want to learn more, I've got a documentary on my channel, a feature-length documentary that's been split up into 3 videos. It's about a 90-minute watch. Go and watch that, and you'll learn everything you ever wanted to know about Action Man. Daniel Howes, thank you for the super chat. It's a nice collection. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. Kal-El48 says, at Analog Toys, you certainly do have a flair for making quality videos. Thank you. Thank you. But thankfully, no Jar Jar Abrams lens flare. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of lens flare. No. If you ever get some lens flare, like in a Becoming Desert Rat video, trust me, it's just accident that I've swung the GoPro in the wrong direction and it's caught a bit of the sun. That's all it is. It's certainly not deliberate, and I certainly won't add in a lens flare as a special effect after the fact. Moonlight 47. Action Man transitioned into extreme sports. G.I. Joe just went extreme. Speaking of which, I have, those of you on Patreon saw it over. So there were 6 Action Man James Bond figures that came out in the 1990s. I have The World Is Not Enough, the figure back here that was donated to the channel, and the packaging art on these is amazing. We have Thunderball that was also donated to the channel. There's the Action Man Thunderball figure, and I'm like, oh, well, I've had 2 of them donated. I've always wanted to make a video about it because I was collecting 90s Action Man as a young adult, seeing it in toy shops. I wanted to collect vintage, and I kind of was collecting vintage at the time, but in the early to mid 1990s, in the pre-internet days, it was not easy to find vintage stuff. You know, you couldn't just go on eBay and, search for the Action Man rifle you're looking for. It was very few and far between. So I suppose to feed that collector itch, I was collecting a lot of 90s Action Man stuff, which I ended up getting rid of it all. But I've always wanted to do a video about 90s Action Man on the channel. I did a live stream a while back with Dan Who Reviews, which was a really enjoyable live stream. Go and watch that if you haven't seen it already. But if I cover this James Bond range, it gives me an opportunity to talk about 90s Action Man. I don't have to collect a massive amount of figures and sets to do the video. There's only 6, and 2 of them are already donated. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about James Bond. And who doesn't want to talk about James Bond? So I've gone out. I've now got the GoldenEye figure. He's probably my favorite in the whole set. So I've got GoldenEye there. Tomorrow Never Dies, which really could be from any Bond movie because it's Action Man in a tuxedo as James Bond. We've got The Spy Who Loved Me from the Roger Moore film, from the opening scene where he's in that striking yellow ski suit. I love this. So I've got 5 of the 6. The last one that I need is Action Man in the James Bond in his Admiral's outfit from You Only Live Twice. And my friend Alan Dawson sold me that. He had the figure in the box. The box was really faded. And he said, "Hey, do you want the box? It's really faded." And I was like, "No, it'll save on shipping. To just turf the box. Just send me the figure in uniform. That's all I need." So big shout out to Alan Dawson. He gave that to me for a really, an excellent price. I was very, very happy with the price. So that's in the mail. So if that arrives soonish, I do have a pre-produced video planned for Iconicon. I haven't made it yet. I have a plan. But if that figure, if that arrives by the end of this week or maybe even early the following week, that might be my Iconicon pre-produced video this year. Will be my review of the 1990s Action Man James Bond figures from Hasbro. So Kieran Ball says, "You only live twice. The figure even has black socks." So does the Tomorrow Never Dies figure in the tuxedo. He has socks as well. So Daniel Howes, who is your favorite Bond? Mine is Moore. I really like Daniel Craig to begin with. In fact, I don't have anything against Daniel Craig. I have a real issue with the way the stories went over, particularly that last film. Oh, God. I like Daniel Craig, but I think my favorite Bond would actually be Timothy Dalton. Not a fan of Moore. I grew up in the 80s with Moore, and I actually didn't start to like James Bond until much later in life. I was not a fan of the Roger Moore films. No offense to those of you who are. It's just my personal preference. It wasn't for me. And that it put me off. Seeing the Roger Moore movies on TV in the 80s put me off wanting to watch James Bond films. So and Daniel House sends the same question in the super chat. Thank you very much, Daniel. I'd say Timothy Dalton. Yeah. Kieran Ball's favorite Bond was Peter Sellers. Well, this live stream has really gone all over the place, hasn't it? Here to kind of talk about Action Man American uniforms, and we went into telling stories about each other's grandfathers and what they did during their wartime service, to talking about James Bond, to giving people advice about starting YouTube channels. We've really gone all over the place. And well, look, it's 6 a.m. I did say to myself, you've got a hard stop at 6 a.m. because I've got to be at work at 7. So I need to get some breakfast and something to eat. Apology. I wanted to do a 90-minute stream. The reason I haven't is because I was late to start. But hey, bear with me. I'm getting up and live streaming for you guys at 4:30 in the morning. So I'm allowed to be 10 minutes late. Keith Knight, most unusual for us lot to send a stream on a tangent. Yes, definitely. But I've really enjoyed this. I want to do more of these live streams, kind of the way we used to do. Mr. Schaefer, thank you for your service, kicking out all those nasty porn bots. And Geojoe, man, you're too kind. You're too kind. Thank you very much. He says, have a safe trip to the US. Much, much appreciated. Goji, will I be meeting you in the States? I hope so. I hope so. I don't know if you're going to Joe Fest or whatever, but did I hear correctly that you went out on like a bit of you went out to a toy store or something with Sal the other day? Because on Saturday, the 2nd of July, I've got a stream at 7 a.m. US Eastern Time with the Geojoe guys. And then when that ends, I don't have to be at Valaverse for the next stream until about 3 in the afternoon. So I've got like, all morning through lunch, and I'm going to be going out with, I'm going to be staying at Sal's apartment the night before and kind of going out and spending the morning with him. So if you're around, man, and I haven't confused you with someone else who went to a toy shop with Sal, let me know and we'll see if we can catch up. But I'd love to meet you. And to everyone else in the chat who's either going to Joe Fest or the Iconicon meetup or whatever it is, can't wait to meet you all there. But for now, stay safe, enjoy the holiday weekend with your families. And thank you all for being here. For those of you who aren't on my Patreon, I'm going to drop the Desert Rat Reacts video as a premiere in about 30. I'm going to set it for 6:30 Eastern. So if you're not on the Patreon, keep an eye out for that. That'll be going up shortly. All right. I'm waffling. I need a cup of tea. I'm going to sign off. Take care.